Nurture and support begins in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Nurture and Support, a podcast where we give you what we think are cool and awesome recommendations and hope that you might throw a few of yours our way as well. I am Mel at Karmic9 on Twitter, and the usual suspects are here. There's Kelly.
Hi, everybody. Kelly Toole at KELLYTHUL on Twitter, and glad to be back with, I think, what is our second episode with our spiffy new intro. So, good times there. Although I may, when I get into one of my recommendations, we may have some discussions on whether we're doing a director's cut for our intro music, because more to come on that later, Mel, in the show.
Oh, interesting. I'm intrigued. So you can reach our website, just to get all of this over with, at nurtureandsupport.net. You can hit us up in the email at nertandsup@gmail.com or on Twitter at nertandsup, and of course, always our regular Twitter handles. So I guess with no further ado, we will jump into recommendations. My first one today is a television series back from 2009 that aired on CBS, and I hope all of you watch this, but I always run into people who have never even heard of it before, so I thought I would throw it out because I happen to love it. It's called Harper's Island, and I think we've talked about this before. Kelly, did you ever watch Harper's Island?
It is in my Netflix queue,
Yes.
but they have released all the Clone Wars on Netflix,
They have.
and so it's going to be a little while before I get to Harper's Island.
Yes, I've added Clone Wars to my queue too. As Kelly said, it is available on Netflix, so if you're a Netflix subscriber, there you go. It is on Amazon Instant Video, but it is not free for Prime members, so if you want to watch it there, you're going to have to pay for it. But Harper's Island is essentially a 13-episode miniseries. It was only ever designed to run for one season. They never tried to make it go further than that, which is one of the things I like about it. It was a good story told in a timely fashion, but it is a horror, suspense, mystery, thriller type series that revolves around a girl named Abby, who is in her early 20s, I believe, and she grew up on this island, and her father is actually the sheriff. So she has come back after 7 years away from the island for her best friend Henry's wedding. Now, Henry spent summers on the island with her, but he was from a rather well-off family who just came and vacationed on the island for the summer. So you have a little bit of class struggle going on the island as well, between the townies and the tourists. So Abby's come back after 7 years away. Now, the reason why she's been gone is her father, the sheriff, sent her away to live with family members in California because a big, bad serial killer guy came to the island and killed a whole bunch of people one day, one of whom was her mother. This was a very traumatic experience. She actually saw the killer. His name was John Wakefield, and you'll hear his name a lot in the series. But the sheriff supposedly shot and killed him, ending this killing spree 7 years ago. So he sends her away, and she has resented him for it ever since. And this is the first time she has come back and seen her father in all this time. But, shockingly enough, the killings start happening again as soon as she gets back on the island. So you've got, I think the byline of this show was, let's see, one murderer, I think it was one murderer, 25 suspects. So you've got this huge, huge wedding party. And every episode, this is one of the things I absolutely love, every episode, 1 to 5 people die. Every episode.
Now there's good TV for you.
It is. And it is excellent TV. It's excellent. I just loved it. It was very suspenseful. You didn't know. I'd like to say I usually figure these things out, but I have to say I didn't figure this one out until close to the end on who it was. So I highly recommend it for anyone who likes that sort of thing. And it was a network show. It was on CBS. I think it came on at the 10/9 Central time slot. And you have to say it's about serial killers, so really how much can they really show? They were very creative in the ways that they showed people being killed. You really didn't directly see people getting stabbed or dismembered or things like that because it's a network show. There's only so much they can do. It's not like Freddy or Halloween or something like that. So I thought it was really well done. They did a good job doing it. You get a very good sense of the extreme violence involved without them ever actually showing it to you. So it's really very interesting. You just have to watch it to kind of see how delicately they handled that situation. One of the other cool things I like about it is that the episode title for every episode, they were all onomatopoeias based on the sound that was made when each of the victims of that episode died. So, for example, the very first episode's name is WAP, and then the next one is Crackle, then Kablam, then Bang, then Thwack, Sploosh, Thrack, Splat, Sizzle. That was the whole episode, that one. Then you've got Gurgle, Seep, Snap, Splash, Gasp, and finally, the last episode was titled Sigh. I thought that was a neat little
Well, very cool. Right.
a neat little trick at the end. So I just highly recommend it. It's always been one of my favorite series, and Chiller used to showed little mini marathons on the weekend, but I don't think that they're doing that anymore. For those of you that get Chiller though, it might still be on the schedule somewhere. So I would check it out to see if it is, because if you can watch it, you really need to start from the first episode. And this is something that you could really binge watch, like they do with releasing all those shows on Netflix, and you can like watch an entire season in a weekend. I would recommend it for this show. It's really good.
Very cool. And it was 13 episodes, and it stayed 13 episodes. Are you listening under the dome?
Yes. Because once again, we can't miss an opportunity to bash Under the Dome.
That's right. Any opportunity we can kind of take a shot at it's become an unfavorite of ours. You do. Very cool. Yeah, and I'm absolutely going to get to it. But just couldn't resist the Clone Wars.
Oh. Yeah, and I meant to say that Abby's father is played by favorite Jim Beaver, who is Bobby on Supernatural. So there's another draw for a lot of people. If you miss Bobby, you didn't see Harper's Island, you can go back and watch him be the sheriff of Harper's Island.
And he's also Walt's gun dealer, if memory serves right, from Breaking Bad.
He was. Yes. He was a little hard to recognize. He had a lot more facial hair even than he normally does, I think. But yeah.
Small scenes for him, but he always kind of put into
Yes.
Walt's hands things that were going to cause problems in the show. So
Yes, absolutely. So you can go get a Bobby fix over at Harper's Island. It had a lot of other people. Brandon J. McLaren is also one of my favorites. He was one of the people in the wedding party, and you may know him from Tucker and Dale and Falling Skies, but he did an excellent job in this show as well. I always love him in everything he's in. He's funny, so I always enjoy watching him. So I highly recommend you check out Harper's Island if you want a good mystery, scary, serial killer-y. There's even a scary, creepy kid in here too, so that's always a draw.
it's always a nice touch.
Yep.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, tough one to follow up, but I think we'll stay in television series land, I guess then. But we'll move to an animated feature, and I am going to recommend Danger Mouse, not the musician Danger Mouse, but the actual cartoon Danger Mouse, which was a cartoon that ran for, well, it gets a little tricky at the tail end of its run, but there's 8, 9, 10 seasons or so. 81 through 92 fits and starts that it ran. Probably you can find some DVD or Blu-ray collections of Danger Mouse. You can also hit YouTube pretty aggressively, and you're going to be able to find most of the episodes. They only run usually between 11 to 15 minutes, so fits well with kind of my attention span type of thing. But so Danger Mouse is a secret agent mouse. He's got an eye patch, which I believe he just wears for effect. and a big white t-shirt. He's a white mouse and wears a kind of a turtleneck sweatshirt with DM across the front, and he's into yoga, and he's known as the White Wonder, and the Wretched Rodent, and so it's him. Of course, no secret agent is, you got to have a supporting cast, so he has an assistant, which is Penfold, Ernest Penfold, who most people assume is a mole because he wears glasses and doesn't particularly have good eyesight, but actually he's a hamster. So it's a mouse and a hamster, and they kind of live in their hideaway is a English Dropbox mailbox type of thing from the day. And then also another mistaken identity, their main leader is Colonel K, who most people assume is a walrus, but is actually a chinchilla. And
Whoa.
So that's kind of yeah. Well, he's got full cheeks, but tusks are not there, so he's a chinchilla, and so that's it. And of course, the Silas Greenback is the reoccurring villain. He's actually a toad with a wheezy voice, commonly referred to as the Terrible Toad. And there are several others. So it's a whole series of fun little episodes of Penfold, who is a admitted coward on everything, and gets into all kinds of trouble. Apparently Penfold is an expert in the martial art known as Kung Magi, but we never really see him use it. He kind of threatens to use it, but it never really kind of works out. And usually Danger Mouse has got to kind of save him from there. But it's the typical series. Basically most shows are Danger Mouse is relaxing in his abode and gets a call from Colonel K, and so he and Penfold need to take off and take on all sorts of different criminals. This includes Count Duckula. And so Count Duckula then began to spin off and have kind of his own career as well. And where Count Duckula looks surprisingly close to some trademark violations of Daffy Duck as a vampire. But Count Duckula came from Danger Mouse. And it's just, they really do a good job of coming up with all sorts of different animal villains, like Dr. Frankenstoat, who is actually a stoat, but he does Dr. Frankenstein kinds of things. And there's the Fang Bonner and El Loco and all those types of things. So it is lots of humor, lots of Inept Penfold having to be saved by Danger Mouse, and Danger Mouse is like Mr. Super Cool, and everything you try and do against him, he eventually finds a way to get out of it. So he always lands up on top. British humor, lots of clever little jokes in between, kind of little side things from there. It is fairly interesting because it was English, and occasionally they kind of tap into kind of an American villain or those types of things, and it's just, so we get a sense of kind of what the English think of us, including a particular character who's called Texas Jack McGraw.
Hey.
Who's a loudmouth but loyal Texan.
There you go.
And he kind of looks like Yosemite Sam to a large degree. So, but it's fun. So if you've never really watched a cartoon of small animals being super agents, fighting an evil toad, and in the evil toad, you're like, all villains, all James Bond-like villains have to have, their white kitten or cat that they pet type of idea. Although for Silas Greenback, it's caterpillar, but so it has all that.
Close enough to a cat.
Yep, it does all the tropes that you would expect in that, but they're fun to watch. The other thing that's kind of fun is that the announcer that kind of runs from the beginning and in isn't, I think, particularly impressed with the show. He kind of takes shots at it at the beginning and like, well, wasn't that really a great story? Can hardly wait to the next. So lots of kind of fun things there. So they're short little bursts. You said you can get most of them on YouTube. It's fun, and the reason I brought up, because I just don't know, Mel, if our research will lead us to know what we can and can't do regarding public domain stuff, but the Danger Mouse theme is a wonderful, peppy little tune. In previous recommendation had all the TV theme songs. I just wonder if we'll have to talk about it post-editing show, and if you've listened to the show, you'll know whether we figured out whether we can include a little snippet of that or not in our introduction, but it's...
and if you have an answer for that question, then give us an answer, because we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, maybe that's a better way. Let's crowdsource. Why don't you folks do the research and let Mel and I know how much we can include, and then we'll do that in future shows. But,
absolutely.
So Danger Mouse would be my the cute show titles too. Not as clever as the one you just did, and unfortunately the body count is typically a lot less than Harper's Island, but it's still fun.
Yeah. So this was a British cartoon. I know that I've seen at least one episode, but I'd never watched it regularly. So it's a British cartoon? It's
a British cartoon, correct.
Did it air in the U.S. on the networks, or was it a cable?
Yeah, that's how I came across it. Is that it through syndication on a couple of times, and during my college days, after a hard day of studying, we would retire to the dorm room and catch the most current episode of Danger Mouse before proceeding to go study some more.
So it sounds like your Danger Mouse would be my Pinky in the Brain.
So I think that's probably a very, very strong parallel.
Yeah, I loved Pinky in the Brain in college.
That's good too.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, my next one isn't going to be nearly exciting, though it is hilarious. At least I think it's hilarious. It's a book, but I am particularly recommending the audiobook. And it's a book called A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. Bill Bryson is this very funny, I guess you call him a travel writer, but he is an American who has spent a lot of time in England, and he moved back to the States. So he's got a bit of a hybridized British accent going on, but he is a Native American. Not a Native American, but, he was born here. You get what I mean.
Gotcha.
So, anyway, they got back here to the States, and he got this wild idea that he was going to walk the Appalachian Trail. He doesn't really know why, just because where he lived, and I want to say, it's terrible, I have forgotten it. I think they lived in Vermont. I'm probably wrong about that. But part of the Appalachian Trail ran through where they were. So he wanted to be like all the other manly men in the coffee shops around there who talked about how they hunted and all that sort of thing. And, he didn't want to be too prissy. So he wanted to be able to say he'd been out there. And so he got this wild idea that he was going to walk the Appalachian Trail. So he actually narrates the audiobook, and it is just his anecdotes about it and the things that he comes up with are just truly, truly hilarious. He is not an outdoorsman. He's never camped. He's never done any of those sort of things, and he embarks on this grand adventure, which first starts out in the outdoor store with trying to buy all of the hiking equipment. Luckily for him, his son has gotten a job at one such store and has told him to come in and talk to a particular person who has done the hike, and they know what he needs and everything, but he's under very strict orders to not embarrass his son, and he is specifically told not to put on any of the women's hats because he thinks it's funny, and to absolutely not say when they tell him how much something is, to absolutely not say, "Are you shitting me?" So this is apparently something he says a lot. The whole book is full of just hilarious little notes on everyday things. He buys a book about bear attacks on the Appalachian Trail and how to avoid them, and he reads parts of it to you, and it's truly, truly funny. And he's like, "Why am I doing this?" But he enlists a friend of his, whose name has been changed, I'm sure, named Stephen Katz, to go on this hike with him. And they don't do it all in one go. They do a section and they go home. Then they fly out to the next section and they do another section. But he and Stephen apparently went to high school together, and they did, in one of his other books, hike across Europe, and haven't talked since then. They got on each other's nerves so bad, and that's like 20 years ago. So why they're doing it this time is because he couldn't find anybody else to go with him. And it doesn't take 2 minutes before they're on each other's nerves. And they get out onto the trail, and they're loaded down too much with supplies, and they're just throwing stuff everywhere. which of course means you don't have food to eat later when you've dumped it all because you're tired and your pack is too heavy. So if you tend to like nature type books or things along that line, you will like this. However, you don't have to have any interest in the Appalachian Trail. You don't have to have any interest in being outside or hiking anywhere to get a good laugh out of this book. It's actually one of the first audiobooks I ever listened to, and it kind of set the bar too high. A lot of audiobooks really get on my nerves because I can't stand the narrators, but I think this may have been actually the first audiobook I had ever listened to, and it set the bar way too high because it was just so funny. Now, Robert Redford apparently agreed with me, and he decided several years ago to make this into a movie. And he actually wanted to play Bill Bryson, and he wanted to get Paul Newman to play Katz. But Paul Newman died, and I think he also said no. But so it's just kind of been rolling around, and apparently they have finally nailed it all down. And I don't know if they're filming, and I'm sorry, I forget who is going to play Bill Bryson's part. It still was going to be Robert Redford, but apparently it's not now. But Nick Nolte is supposed to play Stephen Katz. And that's going to be absolutely hilarious because this guy in the book is way overweight. He spent a whole big chunk of his life stoned, and apparently he took some bad amphetamines, and he's ended up with some sort of medical condition, which means he has to eat like every hour, which isn't really something that's conducive to hiking the Appalachian Trail. And he's just hilarious and useless, and it will be great. If that is actually true and Nick Nolte is playing that character, this will be absolutely hilarious. But the last I saw, this is supposed to actually come out either at the end of this year or sometime next year. So it's something to look forward to, and I would definitely recommend you get the audiobook and give it a listen because you will laugh your ass off. It's hilarious.
Sounds awesome, and audiobook's always a good route for me. and this one sounds excellent that way.
It is really good. I recommend it to everybody who wants to get into audiobooks because it is still years and years later one of my highest rated audiobooks ever. So
excellent, cool.
Check it out, people.
Absolutely, that's good. So, alrighty. So I hopefully through the series of shows we've done, we have clearly established that while I listen to Alice Cooper a lot, there are actually other musical performers who I also listen to, and some of them aren't so bad. In fact, my favorite album of all time we did here, I think the last episode, which was The Clash. I'm going to stay in England and make another musical recommendation today. This is a guy who he's in my top group of favorite folks to listen to. A really big catalog of material. Has never completely broke through in the United States for some reason, and it's beyond me. But gentleman's name is Graham Parker, and he. So you may, typically when you mention him, you're like, oh yeah, I kind of heard of him or whatever. But he came on the scene as kind of pre-Elvis Costello, pre-Joe Jackson, as kind of the prototype angry young man, and kind of a well. Let me go to if I can bring up the description Rolling Stone uses for him. They described his 1976 debut, which was Howling Wind, was introducing a young white soul man in the Van Morrison mode, only less mystical and more pissed off. And that pretty much kind of captured it. So it was definitely angry young man. In fact, to the degree that he picks a fight with God in one of his songs called "Hey Lord, Don't Ask Me Questions. There's no answers in me." And it's really heartfelt stuff. It's great lyrics. He's got that kind of white soul man kind of voice, kind of a smoky thing, and it's really good. He's a great songwriter and singer, and just well-crafted lyrics, and so just tons of really good stuff in the early days. Then somewhere in the process, he got married and got a lot less angry for a while.
You gotta hate when that happens.
You know, it's like, dude, really? I'm glad you're happy and everything, but man, come on, go pick another fight with God. Go. But,
Yeah.
So there were a series of albums kind of in the middle of the career that were at a much more positive note. Still very good stuff, but I'm sure the marriage has gone fine. But he has, over time he started to return back to say, I do still have a few bones to pick, and so he. Yeah, but now there's kind of a little greater depth to the anger rate. So, big long introduction to "Struck by Lightning" is the name of the Graham Parker album that I am going to recommend for today, and you just can't have a better addition to your musical library than "Struck by Lightning." In terms of I want to listen to good music, clever lyrics, well performed. It's just top to bottom. Someone who's good at their craft and doing those types of things. So it's just, when I got it originally, because I always, new Graham Parker album comes out, I'm going to get it. I just was really struck that as much as I've liked everything he's done, this was one I said, wow, kind of from beginning to end, I just really enjoy this, and it's really good. It's very stripped down. It's just him, a bass guitar player, and a drummer, and he does some of the, the multiple overdubs for the guitars and those types of things. Occasionally there'll be an accordion or an organ brought into it, but it's a pretty scaled down song, but it's our album in terms of musicianship, but they're just song after song is really good. And so the recommendation would be to get the album and to particularly listen to "They Murdered a Clown." Now, this would be the spoiler alert section, because I love this song so much I want to talk about it a little bit more to kind of describe while it's good. But by talking about it, there's a twist at the end of this song that if you listen to the rest of the recommendation, I'm going to spoil it for you. But it's still going to be good. Don't worry about it. Just listen to it and enjoy it.
Okay.
So They Murdered the Clown. They Murdered a Clown, rather, is him painting a picture of a very dingy, unpleasant circus that's touring. And it's basically the story of Coco the Clown, who has fallen in love with the bearded lady, who happens to be the ringmaster's babe, and by the end of the song, the ringmaster takes care of business and Coco's gone. So that's the story. But it's just the way he crafts the story, the way he sings it, the way it's performed is just amazing, because it'll be lyrics, he's describing very effectively this dingy kind of circus with lyrics like the Giovanni sisters performed in a sweat, someone cut holes in their safety net, the Rizzo brothers canceled at the last minute, but no one missed their act, there wasn't much in it. And it just kind of goes in and through there, and so it tells the rest of the story of the thing, and then you do kind of keep hearing that the Coco's gone, and so finally the bearded lady comes across Coco there dying, and the lyric is, she looks at him sideways, she looked at him dark, she pulled at her beer, and then she started to bark. He told her before not to mess with the staff, but she fell for the clown because he made her laugh. And they got just the little organ music right at the end of that, and it's just such a great song. That song alone makes this album worth getting it. But it's just a variety of things, and you get kind of this nice mix of happy Graham Parker and angry Graham Parker, but it's just all incredibly well crafted music. And so I have a high degree of confidence if you go and pull this off of your media providing site of choice, you will say, wow, that's a bunch of really enjoyable songs. Thanks, Kelly. What a fine recommendation. So
absolutely, and Murdered Clowns are always welcome.
It's rock has not covered that as much as they should. But it's a happy little tune.
Cool. That is good. Murdered Clowns are always excellent. I won't go so far as to say all clowns should be murdered, but I won't shed a tear.
With the bearded lady, and so Coco appears to have been an okay clown, but he had fidelity issues, obviously, so he had to go.
Yes. So I think that wraps up our regular recommendations. Are we ready to move into? Are we doing G+ recommendations today?
Yes, we're revising the section at the end where Mel and I will be providing social media recommendations.
Yes.
Just frequently, which will be Twitter, but may depending on the week and how we're doing on coming up with Twitter recommendations, it may be other things. So for today's show, we're going to do G Plus recommendations.
We are.
So you want to do yours first, Mel?
Sure. Mine is Fraser Cain, and the last name is Cain. He came up with the website Universe Today. He's very active on G+, talking about all sorts of science and space-related astronomy-type things. Universe Today does a lot of Google Hangouts, which is why he's primarily active on G+. He does have a Twitter handle that's at @fcain, which he's trying to be more active at, but really most of his content is up on G+. What I particularly like about him is they do a hangout called Virtual Star Parties, and this is where they get a bunch of people in a hangout and they have their telescopes trained up at the sky all hooked into the video feed. And they will sometimes take requests from people who are watching to show them a particular star or constellation and things like that. It's just really neat.
So the feed from the telescope is actually coming through the Hangout?
Yes, they will. So depending on because they have a bunch of different people in. Some are better at handling that tech aspect than others. Sometimes they'll have to take a picture, but most of the time it's a live image of what the telescope is seeing. These guys all have primo high dollar telescopes. This is what they do. Most of them are actual astronomers. So I just find it really, really interesting because I've always been interested in things like that, but I've never learned how to do it. So I think that's a very cool hangout. Great to have the kids watch to learn all sorts of neat things, and you get to see it. You get to see it in real time, without a lot of the images that we see have been colorized to give you the depth and to point out and show you things. When the media puts out a new Hubble image and things like that. Most of the ones that we see in the media have been altered to show you, to better define them for you. What you're going to see, what they do, is the actual live image. So if it's something that you wanted to get out and do yourself as a hobby, they're going to give you the more realistic image and look at it. I just think it's a great hangout. I enjoy it every time I watch it. Different times of the year, though, they have to do it at different times, and sometimes it's not really a time I can watch. But I highly recommend you follow him on G+, and definitely check out their virtual star parties. But his website, Universe Today, is full of all sorts of cool stuff if you're into astronomy and just science in general. So I recommend you check him out.
Very cool. And I will circle him before the end of the show. So that'll be good. Yeah, and so Google Plus is interesting. So I mean, we use it a lot. We record, Mel and I do a Hangout to record the audio for the podcast here. So the Hangouts feature, is great, and I've been using that a lot. The social networking aspects of it, so Twitter, I totally, I know who I'm connecting with, and I know who's kind of following me and following me back. And Facebook, same thing. It's a different kind of mojo going on in Facebook there. But Google Plus is just, I still scratch my head on it. I really like it. I don't go to it quite to the same from a content point of view. I go to Twitter regularly to kind of see what's out there. Google Plus is kind of fits and starts for me when I go there. But every time I go there, whatever I've built as far as people I'm following and following me back provides a really good flow of things that I care about. Just fun. You're going to see. There's always a pretty cool Firefly thing out there, something related to Star Wars, and or just kind of clever humor types of things. And so it's always just a quick burst, and you go through but the whole process of kind of circling and whatever, and I couldn't even tell you. Well, I've got a good sense of how many people are connecting with me on Twitter and how many people I'm following. I couldn't even venture a guess on Google Plus. I'd have to go back and look to see. But I just know whoever I've got, I like, and whenever I get circled by somebody, I usually circle them back. But it is a great, and so you come across just the types of things you're talking about, Mel, where it's just definitely an interest-based thing, and you can find those things on it. So I love it as a network, and it's sometimes easier, sometimes harder to find good content, but I think yours is a great example of a good thing to have in that flow. What I would also recommend, and this is a little less educational than you're offering, but the gentleman's name is Rodney Pike, P-I-K-E, Rodney Pike. And he basically, his post almost exclusively consists of taking a very high-resolution photo of a celebrity, politician, or whatever, and then heavily distorting them, over-characterizing them. So it's like a political cartoon character, but it's done with the higher-end graphics packages. So you get some very strange and interesting looking things there. And so it's a nice, and that whole mix of what's flowing through Google Plus and those types of things. It's hit and miss a little bit on some of the things. He doesn't seem to have an axe to grind. It's not like he's trying to make a particular political party look bad or this or that. He doesn't, he seems to be equal opportunity deformer. He'll kind of modify anybody from there. So he doesn't seem to be overly political, but he does seem to spend a lot of time creating some pretty interesting and amazing things. So
yeah, I just pulled them up. Those are cool.
Yeah, and it's beyond me how Mr. Pike and I connected. How I came across him. Said, well, that's somebody I want to follow. But I can always chase back on Twitter, or at least get a pretty good idea to say, oh, I think that person was probably snarking a sci-fi movie, or there we got exchanged on that. But I don't know how I bumped into him, but he was a nice addition to it. So I would recommend you circle Mr. Pike. And you'll get a nice little addition of some pretty cleverly done things in G+.
Yes, done. Ooh, he has got some really cool ones in here, people. Y'all really have got to go check him out. Those are awesome.
Yeah, it's just amazing stuff, because it's like sometimes when folks do those exaggerations, it's you see the edges of the software package emerge. You kind of see these appear, they're clearly not photos because of the dimensions of everything, but you don't get, he's very good at his craft, because it all looks photorealistic, at the same point totally impossible to be that way. So good stuff. So
I love these.
Yeah, so thanks to Mel for recommending we add Google Plus into the mix here, and I think we'll kind of stay open to other things as well. But we'll just kind of, the tail end of the show, say, hey, if you're on a social media platform and you're not connected to person or company or group X, here's maybe somebody else. And so sometimes it'll be Google Plus, sometimes it'll be Twitter. You never know. And we're certainly, as Mel mentioned at the beginning of the show, open to your recommendations. So if you have suggestions for people to follow on Google Plus, Twitter, or whatever else, let us know.
Yep. So I think that concludes this mega awesome episode.
Indeed it does.
Yep. So hit us up on Twitter or at the Gmail, nerdandsup@gmail.com, or the website, nurtureandsupport.net, and give us your recommendations. And we'll be back next week with more.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Nurturing and supporting Terminated.